When you're setting up a home bar, a small kitchen, or even a man cave, the first thing you worry about is whether the fridge you're about to buy will actually fit into the space, stay cool enough for a party, and not end up as a pricey paperweight. You've probably seen a bunch of glossy ads promising ultra-fast cooling and professional after-sales support, but what you really need is a unit that you can open after a long day, slide a six-pack in, and trust that the temperature will stay where you want it without you having to fiddle with complicated settings. That hesitation is real. Spending a few $100s on a beverage cooler that turns out to be noisy, leaks, or just takes forever to chill is a risk nobody wants to take. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's walk through what the CaLefort 24-inch tall beverage refrigerator actually brings to the table, and why that matters when you're trying to decide if it's worth the money. First off, size matters. At 24 inches tall, this fridge slots neatly into most standard kitchen cabinets or under a countertop, but it also works as a freestanding piece if you have a dedicated bar area. The real benefit of that flexibility shows up when you're trying to make the most of a cramped apartment layout. You can mount it in a pantry nook, hide it behind a cabinet door, or let it stand on its own in a living room corner. That kind of versatility saves you the hassle of rearranging furniture just to accommodate a bulky appliance. Capacity is the next practical concern. The extra-large claim translates to roughly 30 to 40 standard 12-ounce cans or about 20 to 25 wine bottles, depending on how you arrange them. For a family that drinks a mix of soda, water, and the occasional craft beer, that means you can keep a rotating stock without constantly restocking. I've seen people use similar-sized units to store a weekend's worth of mixers and bottled cocktails, which cuts down on trips to the store and keeps everything at the right temperature for entertaining. If you're a serious homebrew enthusiast who needs to keep dozens of bottles chilled for a tasting party, you'll find the interior space generous enough to hold a variety of bottle shapes without cramming them together. Now let's talk about the cooling system. The manufacturer advertises ultra-fast cooling, which in this context means the compressor can bring the interior temperature down by about 15 degrees Fahrenheit within an hour of loading a full rack of room temperature drinks. In real-world use, that means you can pull a case of beers from the garage, set the fridge to the usual 3840F setting, and have them ready for a backyard barbecue in time for the first guests. It's not a race car level chill, but it's fast enough that you won't be stuck with warm drinks while the party is already in full swing. One practical strength that often gets overlooked is the glass door. The clear front lets you see exactly what's inside without opening the unit, which saves energy and reduces temperature swing. In a busy kitchen, that visual cue helps you quickly grab a can of soda or a bottle of water without having to hunt through a dark interior. The door also has a small recessed handle that stays cool to the touch, so you don't end up with a sweaty hand after a few minutes of opening and closing during a party. On the flip side, there are a couple of trade-offs you should be aware of before you click Add to Cart. Because the unit is designed to fit both built-in and freestanding configurations, the back panel is left exposed when it's not installed into cabinetry. That can lead to a slightly higher noise level compared to a fully integrated model, especially if the fridge is placed on a hard floor without a rubber mat underneath. In a quiet living room setting, the humming can become noticeable after a while. If you're a night owl who wants a completely silent appliance, you might want to consider a unit with a thicker insulation layer or a separate anti-vibration pad. Another point to consider is the temperature control interface. It's a simple dial rather than a digital display, which means you won't have precise readouts of the exact temperature inside. For most casual drinkers, setting the dial to cold and trusting the fridge to hold a consistent range works fine. However, if you plan to store delicate wines that need a tighter temperature band, you might find the lack of precise feedback a limitation. In that case, a dedicated wine cooler with a digital thermostat would serve you better. Who should buy this CaLefort beverage fridge? If you're a household that regularly stocks a mix of sodas, beers, and a few bottles of wine, and you need a compact unit that can blend into a kitchen or bar without taking up too much floor space, this model fits the bill. It's also a solid choice for renters who want a freestanding cooler that can be moved without too much effort, because